today, Rinpoche clarified the difference of the meaning of dependent origination between the various tenet systems within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition as well as non-Buddhist schools. So I'm just going to get everybody. Khensur the big double me, then Chiloka Kagi, that's Nipa.
Anga Juji Jigi the Nibala songs. Niba Timba.
Juchi. Nipa La Sum. Okay.
Then you can do about the Lakas over there. Nibala Tubi Jusen the Tubanguini J. Niba Tubanguin the La Shit about the Shedat Tuba near the War. Shit about the Shedat Tuba Nije. The ring out to Shedat Tuba the Madonna Mother.
Shedat Sana? She Shedat?
Chetan Sheda.
Okay. Okay, so when we look at the outline, so welcome everybody to the Chenrezig Tibetan Buddhist Center. Today, once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's text called In Praise of Dependent Origination, or Praise to Buddha Shakyamuni for his teaching on dependent origination. And we're looking at Tibetan commentary. Let me get all the facts. One moment. The Triken, the Delpi Triken, the Jetsun Kuna, the Kon Sengare.
Juno. Juno Daba Jetsun Marva.
Juno Dapa Jetsun?
Andu Lama Sendu.
Okay, so we have a Tibetan commentary by an Amdo master that we're utilizing. And we've gone through much of the commentary. And in the commentary, we find various sections broken down by this, by the Amdo Lama, and it's broken down into the praise, and then the actual praise, and under the actual praise section, we find two categories where there's Chidan Chedrag, generals and specifics section. So we're now in the section Chedrag under the specifics section. So here it says Nipa Lasum, so that means this second section there are three categories. Rinpoche didn't run the whole outline up to where we are at all. He just said basically we're starting here, and he gave just like a summary, kind of as I did, of the points that lead up to it. So basically we're in this section now, which is the specifics related to the actual praise. So that would be the main heading. And it says there are three categories here. So it would be Ranjingi, so the explanation of the natural dependent origination, Domba Denjo. The Tambo Dundagare, Nipa Lasum, Tambo Ranjingi, Domba La Denjungi.
Nipa Dendi Tuba said the shit Tuba, the Shida Tuba Sani Tando.
De Lasum.
Chituba Saji.
Lesso.
Ashida Tuba de la Saji Sondu.
Lesso.
Ranji Tomba Denjungi, Tuntu Sontus. Ranji Tomba de Dendi Denjungi Tuntu Son Yores, Gigi. The Matuna, Debi Hibu Matubas, the Matuna Shajaman Buddha, Debi Hibu Tumares, Shegamares, Matuba Temba. The Tuna, Raji Tomba Denjungi Tunba Tusuna, the Tuna, Tumbala, Seme, Jambi, Teba Cheba Jewa Temba Oza. Raji Tomba Denjungi Tusuna, and the Shajaman Buddha, Teba Temba Jagres, Teba Yabaji Yungres, Tuna Tumbala, Tumba Shajaman Buddha, Seme Jambi, Teba Cheba Jewa Temba Oz, 사지 송바들에도와
So Ranjingi Tumba Denjung. So the natural. So here it's they're speaking of the three specifics of dependent origination here that allow one to build faith in order for this praise to take place. So why is it worthy of praise? What is being praised? So this is the specifics around the praise itself. So it's specifically praising dependent origination. So dependent origination, here we find these three categories. This natural, it's a natural, the explanation of the natural, and then the Demadona, Deminipo. The Nipa Dondagare, Rinpoche.
라지 또
Kade Tsikashing Hakomare.
마투나스 라지지 똥바 땡주고 땡이바 마투나 마시나 땡비니보 샤자만 보다기 땡비니보 또 무투바 땡바스 또요 말에서 땡 송고요 아레스
Nipa.
마투나
Ranjin, the
땡비니보
natural.
무투바 땡바스 라지지 똥바 땡주고 또 송나 또나 땡발라 세메 잠비 대바 제바진 저와 라지 도마 tumbi tönyi bata ngay duena shajamandu budal tenpa teba tenpa yungu res wata tenpa res ta raji doma tenjungu töntu songsu tangpa je
Tambo.
ten matu na raji doma tenjungu töntu songpa matu na shajamandu budal ki tenpi yinpa te togu ma res matuba tenpa raji doma tenjungu töntu na tenpa la shajamandu budal la 세메 잠비 대바 제바진 저와 된바 오사 송게 오더레도와 사지 송데.
So it's first is the natural abiding. We'll have to get into the actual categories themselves, and I think the headings will make more sense. There's some words in here I don't know the meaning of, I just would need to pull it. So there's the natural abiding, the natural emptiness, dependent origination, the explanation of dependent origination of natural emptiness. And if this isn't understood, then the essence of, the second is, if without this, then the essence of the Buddha's teaching aren't clear. And then third, it's with a clear, valid understanding of this, one will be able to generate the great vehicle realizations, or the great vehicle path, if you will. Is that better? Okay. So that's the third category. Okay, the Ewa Som Lapsa Rinpoche.
송조 다 송고나 니바들레 야자 사진이 되도와 라지지 동바 땡중고 땡도 송비 추 당보제 니바 테마도는 데비 니보 모도바 땡바 니바들레 사진이 되도와.
Okay, so the second category will have two.
네 제바셰바당 땡도 땡바 제셰당 몸 제바셰바당
Lesso.
땡다마 두두제당 가바스.
So the second category has an expanded explanation, and then a summary. There are three categories, and Rinpoche went right to the second category and said there are two categories in the second category. One is the expanded explanation, and the other is the summary, or synopsis.
다 라지지 도바 땡중고 땡도 송주 데마도나 땡비 제바 모도바 땡바 들라니제 제바셰바 땡도 가바 니레도와 동바 제바셰바 들라 라지지 동바 땡중고 땡도 만도바 토비 제바 마이바 땡바 사지 당부지 동바 땡중고 땡도 도바 토비 제바 두바사 도바 땡중고 땡도 제바도와데 샤자만 보다게 토지 제바레스 샤자만 보다 켄라그레스 제바두바
The Rinpoche, the Kabbalah.
라지지 동바스 단데이바 다간데 니발라송 라지지 동바 땡주고 송수 사지 동부지 데마도는 데베니보 모두바 데바 니바지 Tatu na tembi hibo tembala seme tambi teba jo sonrowa. Ta niba tematu na tembi hibo motuba temba tala nirenwa. Jeba sheba ta.
The tambola ni jeba sheba.
Jeba sheba ta. Tendu de ngaba nirewa.
Then the ranshingi tomba denjongi the tambo ni nipa ni omare. Tambo ni?
Tambo da raji tomba tenju tendu sombu chu tele saje mudwa.
Then garshane the tambo ni.
Tematu na tembi hibo motuba temba tele saje ni degadwa.
Okay.
Tambola ni.
Okay. Jeba sheba dang lundu duba.
Tendu de ngaba je.
Tambola ni.
Jeba sheba tala ni renwa.
Okay.
Raji ji tomba tenju ku tendu mendo ba tobi jeba mayeba tenbas. Raji ji tomba de tenju ku tenyu ba de shaja mane jega marisana kelanga marisaba ina wa de tobi jeba mayeba tenbas. Tomba tenju ku tendu doba tobi jeba druba wosa. Tomba tenju ku tendu Kashi tenju mayebi choga yoba mayende, tisha tumba mayebi choga yoba mayende, choga ngalo tende res. Tende yinza demo madubo ngalo tende res. Wate shede marba. Tumba tende ji tendo doba. Tumba tende ji tendo doba. Ne tubi jeba tembas. Ta kante nga sede ngala santamba yina, nga te demo madubo santamba nga deba maru shebi lo juyorwa. Nga tende shebi lo juyorwa. Teni jibhen jiru. Nga deba maru shebi lo, nga tende shebi lo zhu shekere. Nga tende shebi lo, nga deba maru shebi lo zhu shekere. Jibhen jiru. What the tende marba?
Then the Jawa, the Sache Jawa gare, that's called Kabudu Gangisina the okay. NGK the Yomare. Then Kanga Zugugudu.
Jiba Shiba Tan, Tendu to Haba Niji, Jiba Shiba to the Niri Dua.
Elapsar.
Raji Tomba Tenju Tendu Mendoba the Tubi Jiba Mares. Raji Tomba Tenju Tendu Mendoba said
The Shacha Tupa Ke Ma Len.
Kilangmate, Shuruba to Kilangma.
Lesser.
Shaja to Kilangmares. Jiba Mayba Tembas. Tumba Tenju Tendu Duba, Tubi Jiba Dubas. Deba Maduba Shiba Lode, Tenju Tendu Jiba de Shajamanu Tuju Kumbares, Jiba Dubas. Chitu Boy Che. Zawa maramba she nas, chizu bongi che, chizu ne, zawa de zhang ne, odo shi na chi mambu cha nuka yu na. Chizu bongi che, zawa maramba she nas, zawa maramba she na, dambu nes, zawa maramba de she ba yin na, zawa de maramba ji she ba yin na. Penzi chujin ruwa la, penbi ledu kaze ba, penbi himbu tumba nyi, penzi chujin ruwa la, penzi chuj shajamana buddha ruwa da, shajamana buddha chujin ruwa sentient tangji la, penbi ledu kaze ba, karu kaze yuwarsana, penbi himbu tumba nyi, penbi himbu tumba nyi, penbi himbu tumba nyi, penbi himbu tumba nyi, Juji Juni.
That's the Chu Sha, the Tem Chi, the Dunta Re, the Gugudu, the Delpa Kali Kabudu. Abecha Keba Yomari.
Juji Juni ro.
The Denzel Dopa. Chu. It's Nge Changa Ja.
Or Juni de
Pense.
Juni de Pense Chujin Duala, Tembi Pense Chujin Duala, Tembi Head to Kazeba, Tenbi Nyebu Tomba Nyi, Nebi Jusen Da Meba,
Gudan Jupa,
Teji,
Gupa Jupa.
Juji Dan Junyi Ro, Juji to Junyi, Juji to Junyi. Juji to Junyi Ni Lua.
Okay.
Penzi Chuji, Penzi Shenje Danji La Pemban Zebi,
Big Gupa.
Shajaman Buddha Juji Ro, Juji Guba Gane, the Juji Bade.
Oh, the Juchi. Yene Shiluka Gupa. Ale, Juchi.
Chuluga
Ale, Shiluka Gupa. Okay. Okay. Just have to bear with me. We don't get together to go over this ever, so this is a really complex commentary, and I just don't know how I would do this live, but I'm going to do the best that I can. So we haven't even looked at any of the stanzas yet, but we're going to be at stanza. If we wanted to, everyone wants to turn to the commentary. We're going to be at stanza number 9, 10, and 11. Let me see here. Taught dependent origination. I feel like I didn't do 8, but pense. Okay, so to help sentient beings, O benefactor, you have taught the peerless reason to ascertain emptiness, the heart of the teaching. This way of dependent origination, those who perceive it as contradictory or unestablished, how can they comprehend the system? For you, when one sees emptiness in terms of the meaning of dependent origination, then being devoid of intrinsic existence and possessing valid functions do not contradict. So here, this is pointing out that there is no contradiction between the establishment of dependent origination, establishment of something as an existent, and then lack of true establishment. Because once, so going back to the commentary, once you, Rinpoche's commentary, not the other commentary, once you see dependent origination, then you necessarily see the lack of true establishment. And by ascertaining the lack of true establishment, you ascertain dependent origination. So it's two sides of the same coin, if you will. So it's if you understand one, then you understand the other. So this is what is meant by this section. So when we go back, it says the second category. So when there are 3 categories in this: the natural dependent origination, the natural emptiness understood by dependent origination, the explanation of it. Then the second category is if you don't understand that this is the essence then of the teachings, then you're misled or something to that effect. And the third category is if you have that direct understanding. Semi Jepa Chen Jepa Den Dona Dumba Seme Jambi Jepa. So yeah, the faith arises when you have this valid cognition. So it's saying here that the faith can arise the faith that arises based on the assertion, the understanding of dependent origination. So here it's showing how dependent origination can generate faith, and then one can succeed in the Mahayana because one understands that I see that the presentation is valid. So then that creates faith in the Buddha. And by seeing that there's no contradiction, here going back, it says, this way of dependent origination, those who perceive it as contradictory or as unestablished, meaning that if you see this as not valid cognition, if you see emptiness as being non-existent, so there's nihilism and substantialism. So if you take an object to the point of nihilism where you perceive its non-existence, then you've taken it too far. But when you can see that dependent origination posits lack of true establishment, and lack of true establishment posits dependent origination. And you can see there's no contradiction there, and that doesn't contradict reality. Then you understand the point of the conqueror. It says, to help heal sentient beings, O benefactor, you have taught the peerless reason to ascertain emptiness, the heart of the teaching, the way of dependent origination. Those who perceive it as contradictory or as unestablished, how can they comprehend your system? For you, when one sees emptiness in terms of the meaning of dependent origination, then being devoid of intrinsic existence and possessing valid functions do not contradict. Let me just see. Whereas when one sees the opposite, since there can be no. Let me just see, go forward in the commentary real quickly. 12, 13. Denjun. Miguel Xing, that natural emptiness, and these are not. I'm just seeing where the break point is.
The concept that none the shade that not choose the Madu 10 day in base taco marble. Not choose the Madu 10 day in base. You could choose the Madu 10 day in base. And Zoo choose the Madu 10 day down the Kuro, down the Insegura. What the shade marble?
Less so.
Down that there. And Shidama to Sule, that and Getaris and Geta and Gewa. Gewatanas, Getas. Tazukoba comes to Suma, Tatana, Tatana in and Getata, Madru Tensita, Mangab Tensisun Marbe, Tari Tatler, Tari Tazukoba comes to Suma, Tatana, Tatana in and Geta, Madru Tensi, Mangab Tensisun Logua.
Da.
Tatana, Tatana. One time Vitabutal down the Logro.
Oh, sign. Less okay. Signs. Lesser. Signs.
Tazu Koba comes to Suma, Tata Nogaseni, Tari Tatu, Tazu Koba comes to Suma, Tata Nogaseni, Ena, Geta, Mangabitensi, Madrubitensi, Sun, what to lay there at that. I go to the woman, then
they kanga the latu. In the direct, the seni danewa, the kanga, the part camera ire. It's seni mambo, ewa mambo, the la kanga lago. The direct,
the woman to tend in basis now.
Lesser.
Lesser.
Lesser. So when we're looking at this, these points that are made, and looking at whether it's contradictory or not contradictory, and we're trying to establish reality while simultaneously trying to establish emptiness, there can be points where one falls into nihilism or substantialism, where there is too much addition or too much subtraction. So the various tenet systems have differing views about these points of establishment. So we look at this simple point that the middle way consequence school would make, as would state as a syllogism, if you will. The subject I is not truly established because it dependently originates. The subject a sprout is not truly established because it dependently originates. So what does this statement mean according to the Vaibhashika school, the Great Exposition school? What does it mean according to the Sautrantika school, the Sutra school? So when we look at these, start to analyze these things, we start to get into the study of correct signs and reasoning. So when we look at the signs, so Darig is the study of signs and reasoning. It's the third text which I completed the first page of. I'll get them for you. But Rinpoche said that gave the definition of sign, and said that there are 3 categories of sign, and that we can find those in the direct teachings. So I'll look that up, because I have the just started it. It's right here. It says there are 3 categories of sign, and then there's nothing else written. So I'll look all of that up. So moving forward, so going back to the text, to help heal sentient beings, O benefactor, you have taught the peerless reason to ascertain emptiness, the heart of the teaching. So here, the peerless reason to ascertain, what is the reason for understanding emptiness? It's in order to heal sentient beings, in order to bring them to a state of enlightenment. And in order to do so, one has to see dependent origination and lack of true establishment and reality all as non-contradictory. So I know the sprout of the form. So Rinpoche also gave a form. Form is not truly established because it dependently originates. So these are all examples of it's called a Chuchen Sewadak, a sign, thesis, and reason. I mean, as a subject, a thesis about the subject, and then a sign or a reason. So whenever we say the subject I is not truly established, so the subject is the I, the thesis is it's not truly established, and then the sign or reason is because it's dependently originates. So that da, signs, there are 3 of, and that last part of that syllogism is the sign. So anytime you hear a syllogism, it's the subject this is that because of that. So the sign is always at the end of the statement that's being made. So there's a study of correct signs. So how do you establish that that is a correct sign to prove the thesis about the subject? So that's the study of signs and reasoning, the 3rd course of studies in the monastery. And as far as anything that I've added and what I'm speaking of in terms of translator's note, there's barely anything, because Rinpoche spoke so much. I'm just trying to put it into a form that I can make sense to everyone, with some dictionary, with some missing vocabulary. So Ngay Tsampa, the Kanga.
Jela Pemba Zeba, churches, ne Penzi church and Walla, maybe left at the Cinderella, Jela Pemba Zeba, Shajaman with a church, Deja in the Wallas, Pemba de, Pembi Cheto, Pembi Ledo, Katze, Tembi Hibune, Chuna, Rajiji, Trube, Tombani, Tombani Temba Teni Las. Chenrezig to be Tomba Temba, the Shajaman Buddha, Tembi Hibores, Teni Las. Tony de Nabi Jutin, Drambi in Damebanes, Tony Shibi Jutin Tanda, and the Yashu the 10 days, 10 days.
Okay, so the best.
Noguchu, Temba Madu 10 days in Beja, 10 days the Revija, but 10 days logger. 10 days to a town and Jabby in so that 10 days. Tony Nabby what did you say? Yashu the team, but
Okay.
Zuchi, the woman to 10 days in Beja.
Lesso.
Dashi, the woman chill, Mata. Chili shares us on a Kangashid.
Lesso. 1.
Tombani Nabby, Jutin de Drambi in that Mebane, Tension the Banju, Taji, Sundini in was. Tony to be Shiro, Tony to be Tolana Mebade, and then Tendig down that it is. Negotiate the moment, Tendi in Beja down that it is.
Then the understand the top dende. This is so good.
You would never matter the Shiaga and the Jumu Guru.
Lesso.
Jo top, and then Toya should do the negotiate the moment, Tendi in Beja that it is. To then be that Mebane, Tension the Banju, Daji, Tuni in was Zuchu Nebamaru Tendi in Beja, what did you say to Teresa? Then you know. When John, you go to never met there, Tendi in Beja, she be Tajula, Chaba Meji, Chabangi, Le, Debbie, Mama dance, Gewatan said, you go to Nebamaru Tendi in Beja, Geta Sonsa to Surisana, Mama, Shidama. Dodo batan sansan batula geta son teres. Shira mal nyoche dema maru tende imbe tende ina dema trubi chagres. Dema maru chagu mares. Dodo ba geta logres. Sansan bete logro da. What to sul geta re des gewa danas. Nyoche dema me tende imbe sesana. Shira mal geta re. Dodo ba lang geta re. Sansan ba lang geta re.
Okay. Lesso, Selbudu.
Madruba said Shiruba is Shiruba. Chaba Majin Gay Landebi, Ngoma, Dance, Tane, Ta Madruba Tonga De, Debi Landebi, Neshiruba to go the Nukuchu, the woman, the Tendi invasion, Tamadrulas, Nukuchu, Tendi, my Islas, Tendi.
Then you could Dendel Mayin, Shiluka Kalan?
Nukuchu, the woman, Tendi invasion, Shiruba to Tamadrula, Tendi, my Islas.
Damadru. Not established. Sign is not established. Okay. Damadru, sign not. Okay.
Tamadruba Tonga Te.
Lesso.
Debi Landebi, Medishesana Shiruba, Shiruba.
Lesso.
Trajentan, Zizin La Suba. Sheji. De Tumba Chuchi, Lo, Lana Meba. Tenjung Tundu, Tenjung Tunjeta, Kontu Chuba Nunde, Kontu Chuba Munusos. What that Tamadus again Geta is a Samal water. Tony Chiago did nobody marriage with that.
Then Ranjupa Damadru Kalan Yomar.
Rajuba Maruma.
Okay. Then
Shirama, Dodobata, Sansan
Kuna. Okay.
Gabatuba Lodorota.
Lesso.
Rajuba Tanjo and Deba Marubi, Cheba de Yor, the Raju Demo Maru.
Lesso.
You don't Demo Maru Charles.
Lesso. Okay.
Tanjo Demo Maru Chalo.
Okay, Lesso.
Under the Geta in Society, Dudubal and Getare, Shiram Hall Getare, Sanzambal and Getare, Shirubal Maru Tanzires, Shirubita Maru Longres.
Lesso.
What the they do?
Okay, so this way of dependent origination, those who perceive it as contradictory or as unestablished, how can they comprehend your system? So here, what is this speaking of? When we look at the tenet systems, there are the Vabhashika school, which is great exposition, the Sautrantika school, which is sutra school, the Chittamantran school, which is mind-only school, and then Madhyamaka schools. We look at, again, that syllogism. The subject I is not truly established because it dependently originates. The subject form is not truly established because it dependently originates, etc. The schools below the middle way school, the Madhyamaka school, so the mind-only school, the Sautrantika school, and the Sutra school and the Great Exposition school, as well as non-Buddhist tenet holders, would say the sign is not established. So in debate, you say Dhammadrup. So you would say the subject, so if you were debating someone, because Rinpoche was doing it, if you were debating someone, you would say the subject form is not truly established because it dependently originates. Now, the mind-only school, the Sutra school, the Great Exposition school, and the non-Buddhist followers would say Dhammadrup, the sign is not established, because they would not see that the dependent origination establishes that things are not truly established. So they would find fault in the sign. So they would see it as contradictory or unestablished, because they would say that that presents nihilism, that takes away too much. So when we look at this word contradiction, it's faulty logic that is seeing it as contradictory. So within the tenet systems, within the middle way school, there are two subcategories, the middle way consequence and the middle way autonomy. And both of those schools state things are not, the subject form is not truly established because it dependently originates. Both of those schools agree with that statement, but there are disagreements about what that means within the middle way tenets even themselves. But the middle way tenets all believe in lack of true establishment proven by dependent origination. So all of the schools below middle way say that sign does not establish it. The sign does not establish your thesis statement about your subject. Whereas the middle way school proves there is no contradiction, and that's why it's the middle way. It's between those two extremes is where that middle way presentation is of emptiness. And that middle way presentation is dependent origination. So going back to signs and reasoning, when we look at the establishment of emptiness and trying to prove emptiness and lack of true establishment, just as a translator's note, we can say emptiness in all schools. Lack of true establishment means emptiness in the middle way school, but in other schools they would see that as nihilism. So the vocabulary becomes really important, and just as a translator's note, this is where it becomes problematic, and you find the need for the Hopkins style translating with so much vocabulary because the nuances of each word are very, very different, and they can all mean completely different things in different schools. So not truly established can mean nihilism according to one school and mean emptiness according to another school. So that's why all of this vocabulary that seems so grand is important, because there's 16 words maybe that are used for emptiness as an example, and they all have different nuances and mean different things to different schools. They would all agree about some parts of it, but would disagree about other parts of it. So that's the reason for this breaking down of it in such an immense way, is because that's how these textbooks do it. And that's how, when you're reading the text, these debates Rinpoche is saying, they're written in. So there's people debating in the book while you're reading it. There's almost like there's an opponent that's not there for the textbook writer. You see it in the Lamrim Chenmo, the qualm and response. So anyway, so this lack of contradiction is found in the middle way school, and this is the dependent origination, and that is being praised by Lama Tsongkhapa here. He's recognizing that dependent origination is the best proof, the best sign, the best reason for emptiness, the lack of true establishment. So this is why he's praising it, because it's the best proof. And it's called the king of reasons. So dependent origination, when we look at proving emptiness, the king of signs, the king of reasons is dependent origination. So this is the king of proof, if you will, that things are not truly established, that emptiness is present, etc. So I believe that I got everything that I could for you in one season. Ngait Sampa Kanga Rinpoche. So the best method, yes. So this is the best method for achieving the understanding of dependent origination. Okay.
다들 니바도 데려도 니바 네 동바 땡중도 투비 제바 주바스 동바 땡중도 손잡아도 샤자만 보다 제바래 샤자만 보다 킬랭 그래 샤자만 보다 chen 그래스 제바 주바네스 니발라 손 들라 사지 손 되게도와 라지 동바라 샤제 탄지 태진 옌도 못해라스 라지 주베 동바들라 ane shaji kanga tega des ane matsaji sebata chu lenji shewa ne wate tam madan kari na samang shaji kanga tega des raji je drubi tongson na den shaji tega ma des nyebala son raji je tombala shaji tanji tejin yendo mate raji je drubi motombala tega ma des yendo mate ba tende yimbi jusen jis zuche debo maru tende yimbi jis tende yimbi jusen ji ranji ji tomba drubas tende yimbi jusen ji ranji drubi tomba drubor da kashi tenju mayebe chunga yoba mayeno dishi tomba mayebe chunga sawashiro oma sawashiro wote tende yimbi jusen ji tende yimbi jusen chunna deba maru parese wote jusen to koyde marbe tende ripi jabun yins tende yimbi jusen ji raji ji tomba drubas zuche deba maru tende yimbi ji tende yinsan deba maru parese drugoro da jusen ji chunna deba drubi tomba drubas druba di gune Tumba ni Pawala na ma ruba was. Tende yimi jusen deba maru somba in so Shajaman boda de Tumba lana ma res. Ne Tumba gno ne yashu. Tumba lana ma kona ma res. Shiru Tumba de mare songo da. Ti gune Tumba ni Pawala na ma ruba was. Maulana meba ruba wos, raji ji, tombala shaji tanji, teji jendo mateba. Tende yimi jusen ji, raji tomba ruba. Tele sondo son, sachi son, sachi son digaduwa.
Ipalasa, ranji tomba. Mitepa Serna?
Raji ji, tomba tenju tobi jeba mayemba tenba tsachi. Tomba tenju tobi jeba druba dhruva. Tobi jeba druva, tomba tenju sonjaba de shajamana budak jeba res. Tila saji son digaduwa. Raji drubi tomba zuche dama maru tende yimbe shizade shajamana budak jeba res. Tila saji son digaduwa. Raji ji tomba la shaji tanji tejins. Raji drubi tomba la ane shaji kanga tegares. Matsaji seba tang. Chun lanshi shewa la sube kanga tegares. Raji ji ma tomba la tega mares. Yendo mate baas. Raji ji ma tona tega mares. Raji ji drubi tonso na tegares. Tende yimbi jusen ji. Tende yimbi jusen ji raji tomba drubas. Tende yimbi jusen ji raji tomba. Zuche deba maru tende yimbi she zu deba maru drubas. Di gune tomba ni Pawala na meba druba was. Zu de deba maru deba drusa suna. Ne zu deba tende yimbi jusen ji deba maru sombi shajaman boda Pawala na meba yiba drundagres shenagruta. Di gune tomba ni shajaman boda ni Pawala na meba druba wo. Ta tambula son yongo raji ji tomba la shaji tanji tejin yendo matebe la son doa. Shaji tanji tejin raji ji tomba la shaji tanji tegres yen tega mares tela saji son. Raji ji tomba la 샤지 태주당 도쇼라 메테버 통화 하보 니제 니가난 담버들에도아 네 라지지 동발라 샤지 단지 태주당 라지 동발라 샤지 단지 태주인데레스 네 지르메지 손데 된거레스 동버네 춘 나지 동바니 땡주 된도 통화나 라지 전 동바당 샤지 태방 마게신 샤지 태방 마게신 어떻게 된 거레스 라지 동발라 샤지 단지 태진 얘는 못해봤더라 네 얘도 못해봤라 사지 송도 송
That's
라지 동발라 샤지 단지 태 얘는 못해봤더라 사지 송 라지 동발라 샤지 태주 당스 라지 주베 동발라 샤지 그가 태수 요레스 라지 주베 라지 동바 마인 발라 도슈라 메테바 땡데 통화 하바고스 땡도
the Sikh mambo nga hako gamare. The dictionary.
하바스
The kanga
다 담부데레도 라지 동발라 샤지 다지 태비 수에서데 단는 세세 제공 말베 신득 된 거에서다 춘나지 동바니 땡주도 통화나 춘나지 동바니 춘나데바 동바데 땡중도 춘나데바 마도바 시블로데게 땡데 시블로들 조시도 거라
let's go.
땡데데 춘나데바 마도바 시블 주센로 주센 춘나지 동바니 땡중도 통화나 땡중도 통화나 라지 동바 시블로데게 땡데 시블로들 조시도 거라 땡중도 통화나 라지 전 동바다
Where are the first few
샤지
pages?
태바 망게신스 춘나 라지 주 동바도 켈라게나 라지 동바 야도 그래 샤지 그가 태그레스 샤지 태바 망게신스 다든 신리령 신리 올마스빌레오레 동바 춘네 더다르 동바 춘네 샤자문 동바 춘네 더다 나지기체 라지 동바 드로바스 나지기체 땡데임 주센지 라지 주비 동바 드로바 디고네 동바니 마와 라나메바 드로바오스 디고네 땡바니 동바니 마와 라나메바 춘나데바 드로바 동바 마와데 샤자만은 보다마도 요마로다 드로바오 다 동바 라지지 네 춘네 라지지 춘 nomba chune ndada rajin ji rajin ndada naji gitse rajin ji nomba robas ti gune nomba ni ma lana ma robos ta tambula sonre do nomba chune ndada naji gitse je ji nomba robas wadel saji sonre do tambula son temba chune de dar naji gitse raji ji tomba droba tela son tambune raji ji drobe tomba himba dans chugala raji drobe tomba res tomba himba dans temaze tene nego sonshi 도시 제수사
13.
어디 주송고 어디는 데 시대가 신대로 신대 주송고 제대 최는 나지 동바니 땡중동도 통하나 라지진 동바다 샤지 태바 망게신스 어디 신대도 말베 동바 최네 샤자면은 보다 동바 최네 데다 라지 데터 나지 기체 라지 동바 드바스 라지 드비 동바 드바 디고네 땡디 이미 주세 라지 드비 동바 드바 디고네 동바니 마와 라나메바 드바 동바니 마와데 땡디 이미 주세 데바 만주 서게 도데 샤자만 보다마도 땡바 현다 요마로 쇼르 발라소바 드바오 Tombala Song, Tomba Chun Deter, Naji Se Rajinji, Tomba Truba de la Song, Chun Raji Trubi, Tomba Yimba Dance, Raji Trubi, Tomba Yimba Dance, Jutu Sikala Raji Trubi Tombaro, Jutuna, Deba Matu Chagaro, Kashi Tenju Mayimbi, Chunga Yoba Mayino, Tendi May Jutuna, Tendi Michao. Tisha Tomba Mayimbi, Chunga Yoba Mayin, Chugala Raji Trubi, Tomba Res, Chutanji Raji Trubi, Tomba Mayimbi, Chuji Yoma Res, Kashi Tenju Mayimbi, Chunga Yoba Mayin, Jutu Sikala, Tendi Michagare, Tendi Mayimbi, Chuji Yoma Res, what the Kura Jodil hit the Mudwe. Raji Trubi, Tomba Yin Tang, Temazi, Tene, Negoso, Songshin Doji Su, Landurji, Tuna, Juba Shaji Tanji, Tanya Tanto, Tebang, Magazine, Shaji Tebang, Magazine, Redua, Shaji Teba, Shaji Gandes Tegre, Chuna Dabatu, Tumba Yinzang, and then also draw Tegres, also combat Pandugre, combat Sayungre, Motadan Rugre, or the Motamatan Degre, Draw Debatan, Sawatan, Tuatan, what the Samati Tegres, never to be Madun Tegmares, what is on the Marbe. Raji to be Tumba Yentan, Temazi, Tene, Negos, Sonshis, Churupandru, Sechus, or the Casagre. Dojis, Dan Dea, Ruya, Laya, Saya, Tonga, Kangalo Tegres, Doji Su, Landur Genena, Landur Genena, Landur Tuna, Juba Shaji Tanji, Magichu Tegre, Guaju Tegre, what was the lady Marba, Tanento, Tanto, Teba on Magazines, the Batu Tumba Law, the Shajika Tegres, the Batu Matun Tegmares, and the Kashil Geta and the Kashil Gewatan Maduba Chanagres, Shuribale Madu Tensi, Mama and Geta and the Zuchi, the Mamadu Tendi images, Shuribal and Geta is, the Batubaina, Tendi in the Batu Chalo, the Ruta, Madu Chalo Mado. Shirama Dudu was Hazabazula, Tamadu, Kazure. What a Madu was saying, but Tanto Teba, Magazine, Chutumba Jetos, Tatayan, Sashile, Kanla Tumba Niroma, Tella Tanji Roman Jurus, Kanla Debatu Tumba de Rona, Tumba de Yena, Tumba de Rona, Tella Shaji Tanji Rongres, Tegres, Roa Tegre, Duba Tegre, the Mota Tamba Tegre, Sama Tegres, Debatu Maduna what the Tegmares, Tella Tanji Roman Juro, Sheson Sos, then the Chu Tanji, Rajish Druba, Dutanya, then the Chu Tanji, Rajish Drubi, Dutanya, Chu Tanji or the Tama Tege, Chu Naji Tombaji, Tenju Tonto Tuana, Rajish and Tomba Dan, Shaji Teba on Magashin, what the Jeremy Son taken the Tango Dozo, the Chu Tanji, Rajish Druba, Dutanya, Mento, she. Mento, Ji Sumunto, Chela, She, Neji, Dayulasa, Ji Sumunto, Chela, She, Neji, Dayula, Chushu de Jeba, Shen Jungo, Tatayan, Sashile, Chune, Tomba, Kanla Tony Moronwa, Tela Taji Moron Juro, She Son Sauce. 다 되는 가성도 ჩვენ 덤바 ჩვენ 샤자만 덤바 ჩვ네 내다 나지기 세라지 덤바 줘봐 뒤군에 덤바님 하고 나나마 봐 줘봐 오사 라지 주 덤바 말라나 봐레스 담불라송 ჩვ네 내다 나지기 세 라지 덤바셀라 사지송레도와 라지 tomba droba de la saji son tomba la son raji ji drobe tomba dans je drose gal raji ji drobe tomba re demba ma droba re je drone demba ma drobe cha reji ma drobe chas tomba dans de ma je de la ne go son shi do shi je so shaji gar se na ro te gre do ba te gre ne wa de chama te ne gre 손신 도지스 네 도지 소 란드르지 먹으주 되그래 거와주 되그래스 란드르지 추나 조바 샤제 단제 타니에도 태방 먹으신 샤제 태방 먹으신 오더레도 태방 먹으신 최튼바 제도스 공가바요 알스나 자와시를 대야 대다양 자실레 quand tomba ni roa tela thaje roa joros chena deba du tonwa te rona chena deba du tonwa te yena tela roa don dobala sobe shaje ganga rongres roa joro she son zos dene chue thaje raje juba du temps ya mendo raje juba du temps mendo ji sombon to jela she neji neji dayulas jerme somo na so go jiro da ga de tendu de ba ji somo ti ro ji somo to jela ji somo to jimen do ji somo to jela she neji da ji somo to jela sa de neji da so de men do da yuela chushu to jeba shenjongos chushu to jeba shenjongos chushu ngazu pochen de pare bu no lu le ne jeba se to yegi ndolo yin sa de jongo de yim khon ga sa she le ton la kan la ton ni moron wa tela thaje moron joros 또 chuyena daba dhubi tongwa de mena, roa tega mare, doba tega mare, shaje tsama tega mare, tanje maron joro she son zos, ta somba de remeda somba. Ta somba de karendo, somba derendo, somba nes, teshu cheji temba la, tenjung tuwa leba ngas. Teshi cheji tenpa la tenjung tuwa leba ngas. Teshi cheji tenpa la tenjung tuwa leba nga. Tamba la song, raji ji tomba shaji tanchi techu, doshu la me tebi, tende tuwa nga pa asa wate renduwa. Tenji tuwa nga pa saji nyebat. Somba nyebat la, somba la saji nidi ne, tamba raji ji tomba la, shaji techu tambaji tonshu la mateba tende tonga ngabas wadere dwa tende tonga ngaba teshi chuji tenba la deishire shajamana buddha chuji tenba la tenjung tonga leba ngas tende tonga shirage yabure tel tuyo mamu yuwares yunten mamu juya yuwares leba nga kondu jubi juten deishina kondu jubi otati tsinde leongro kondu jubi juten deishina tenba chuji tenba dela tenjungi nelu sang chuni tongwa ne leba nga sos tenba shajamana buddha chuji tenba la ne sanji ki tenba la longi tenba to tubi tenba nyi yoro tenbi danchi nani de longdong tubi dani dos shajamana buddha ki longdu ki tenba la tenba chuji tenba la longdu ki tenba la Dala, Tenjungi Nelu Sang, Chunin Tuan the Leban Hansos, Tendi Yimi Jusenji what the Demo Maduba Tuan de Shitak Haju, the Abbot and Haju Moviwares, Hanso, Raji Tumba Dan, Tela Shaji Tanji, Leber Shebala, Hansunes, Raji Tumba Dan, Tela Shaji Tanji, Tetu Leber Shebala, Chutanji Raji Jubi Tumba, and Chutanji Raji Tumba Shina Abro. Tela Shaji Tanji Tetu, Chutanji Raji Juba Tumba Sheba, Tonton Demba Marbi, Tonton Demba, True Truth, Compassion Truth, Demba Ni Teleton, Demba Ni, Raji Jubi Tumba Dance, Demba Tonton Demba J, Tonton Dembi Suti, the Shaji Tanji Tebi Suti, Kunzu Demba later, Kunzu Demba. Raji Tumba Dan, Tang Shaji Tanji, Teju Leba Shebala, Hansu Nes, Ngomolu Song Yores, Ngomolu J, Chuna, Tomba and the Shenas, Chuna Deba Tomba and the Shena, Ledan Deba Demba Khan, Ledan Deba Demba Khan, Mota Yujan, the Mota, Major Yujan, the Major, She Song Jins, Dole Chang, Tenjin de Banjuan, Tuan Tene, Chutungos, She Song So, Tenjin de Banjuan, Tuan de Chutung, Tenjin de Banjuan, Tona, the Hinsheba Tungos, a Tongue of Hashin Son de Lot, the moment, Beijing Hashin on the College you do that.
You too, Marty.
Ah.
Gemma, being a internet da, then Jew. You know, the Kanga Jew too, Marty. So I was just saying to Rinpoche, I can look at this in the future and go over it and try and translate it, but this is 2 pages of material that it's just not possible for me to translate. Rinpoche said, let's have tea. Yeah. I mean, it was I don't know if he timed it. It was over 20 minutes of, I'd have to remember. So I'd like to just go back and get it right because it's about emptiness. It's about really important material. And I don't know. I don't know who could do it, but I can't. So.
Can I get you anything?
Rinpoche presented an enormous amount of material before the break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to summarize everything that was presented, whatever I've been able to do in the last 5 minutes to, get together, that long speech that was given. And then for the next class, I'm really going to try to make an effort. I don't know how, but I'm going to make an effort to at least get the outline itself translated, if I can, into English. Because I do have a small amount of time that I might be able to do it. So that'll make it so that it's a lot, at least easier to flow through the commentary. As for the meanings of everything, that's another story. But as far as the words being able to be just right at my access would be much, much more suitable when it comes to this amount of subject matter and these amount of divisions and definiendums and definitions. When we look at this dependent origination and we look at the comprehension of it, and it says for you, this way of dependent origination, those who perceive it as contradictory or as unestablished, how can they comprehend your system? So then the text goes on to speak of how dependent origination establishes the lack of true establishment in all different facets. So when we look at in terms of going somewhere, the going is not truly established. Coming is not truly established. Walking is not truly established. Running is not truly established. All of these different subjects that are not truly established are proven. And then when we look in the Nagarjuna's root wisdom text, we find that in the beginning, I believe, where it talks about the goings and comings the examination of all of these different things. In the Root Wisdom text, we find the examination of conditions and actions and various different things. But I believe, I'll see if I can just find it quickly. Nagarjuna speaks of the different goings and comings and their emptiness in the beginning of this text. Anyway, I don't want to waste too much time. Okay, so these lower Buddhist schools, as well as the non-Buddhist systems, assert that the sign that's being established by the middle way schools is incorrect. So they feel that if the proof is incorrect, then that means that the thesis is wrong. So they feel that unravels the middle way Prasangika system's view. And it appears that the word Gyalwa, it says contradictory, but mutually exclusive is usually this is similar, but mutual exclusion, meaning there's no common locus between these two. So they wouldn't see dependent origination and lack of true establishment having this common locus. They would see them as mutually exclusive without having any kind of compatibility whatsoever. So that's why there's still a substantialism that's established in these lower schools because of the fact that they feel that lack of true establishment is too much removal, and that dependent origination itself actually proves establishment. So this functionality and this dependent origination proves establishment, proves that this lack of true establishment is merely referring to nihilism. So some of those lower schools actually use the proof of dependent origination to establish the thing's true existence. So there's misuse of a proof, and then there's also a wrong proof. So in this case, there's a misuse of a proof being in some of the non-Buddhist schools. One second. Okay, so the lower schools, the lower schools assert that if something is dependent arisen, it must be self-existent because it dependently arises. So they use that dependent origination as a proof to prove this self-existence. So all of the schools below the Madhyamaka would assert this. That this was the case. So they would respond by saying that sign is not established. So going back to this, those who perceive it are referring to everyone below the middle way school. When Lama Tsongkhapa here is pointing out this contradiction, he's pointing it out to all Buddhist scholars below the middle way, as well as all non-Buddhist tenet systems. And Rinpoche said some of the non-Buddhists are the enumerators, the Samkhya school, and the nihilists and so forth that posit that this is just not correct, and this is just not a correct proof or reason. Let me just go back to this. Dead school. So this intrinsic existence is what is this final view that separates this lack of intrinsic existence, inherent existence, natural existence. These are all just different translations of the same word. This inherent existence, let me see for you. So this inherent existence, intrinsic existence, is this what separates the middle way from all of these other tenet systems and non-Buddhist tenets. It's this intrinsic existence. Dependent origination is something that's found in all of the Buddhist schools as well as non-Buddhist traditions. We find dependent origination, causes and conditions and so forth presented in others. But it's only this then being devoid of intrinsic existence. This is the one point that separates the middle way from all other philosophical views. And it's the ability to posit this things being devoid of intrinsic existence while possessing valid functions. So there's no contradiction there. So something is able to perform a function that dependently originates. So if something dependently originates, saying that because it dependently originates, it is not intrinsically existent, doesn't then contradict in any way the fact that it functions, that it is a valid functioning thing. So that's the middle line, is between this place where you can see that things dependently originate, are able to be a functioning thing, and are valid to be called what they are called, yet they are not intrinsically existent because of that dependent origination. So the lower schools say it's because of that dependent origination that we say that it is it's self-existent or intrinsic existent. It must be if it's dependently arisen. So these are the points that go back and forth, and in the root wisdom text we find Nagarjuna negating this point. And then also it says in here that you find in the commentary, you find in all of the collected works of Lama Tsongkhapa, you find this presentation made as the final view being this void of intrinsic existence. So going back to the praise is for this final view, because it's this final view that's required to completely heal all beings, healing them not only of the afflictive obstructions, but the obstructions to omniscience as well. And being able to remove all of those negativities requires, as a translator's note, also bodhicitta on the method side, but on the wisdom side requires flawless wisdom and requires a wisdom that recognizes the nature of reality without too much addition or too much subtraction. This is the realization that one is trying to arrive at, and what is being praised, the reason it's being praised, and the negation of these other systems that misuse misuse the proof or misuse the sign. So the misuse of the sign of dependent origination. So this stanza is pointing that out, as well as presenting the middle way school view itself. Ngay Tsampa Dikson.
Yeah. That the nipa do terendwa. Tele duba tonga na tonga sha mroshin. Shatan kila dum. Nyangi an tonga jis. Nipa do temba raji ji tomba la shaji teju tambaji. Doshula Mateba, Tende Tuan Habas, Dujula Mateba, Tende Tuba Haba, Niba Ne, Tele Duba Tuana, Telashamano, China Raji to be Tomba Shesuna, Shaji Taji Tegade, Tomba de Mutona, and then Shaji Taji Tegamares, Tele Duba Tuana, Tonla Shamano Jins, and then Shaji Shadna Chilla Tom Mepe. Nyangya to tonga yes. What the matter sended to Rujana Kete, Hasheba the China Raji to be Tomba Tele Duba Kete, Raji Droba Tonga Te, Kelenba Shenas, Chuna Raji to be Tumba the Kelen the Ashure, then my Baji Raji to be Matumba the Kelenba Yina, Shena, then the Mete Raji Tumba La, Shawasheba Tanji Teba, Jado, Raji Tumba La, Shasheba Tanji Teba Jado Muronshin. 내가 수준의 소지 샤지 테바 테바는 제바네 라지 주베 동바 매번 너고베 주소스 다다시 당우도다.
So now the text, there's a debate that's taking place between these lower views that are saying, well, how is something going to be able to function and be established in this world and agreed upon as this or that without having some sort of intrinsic existence that we can all see is there, and then the middle way school is negating this because dependent origination shows that there's this multiple things coming together in order for this thing to be established, and that there isn't some separate entity that establishes it without that collection. So this is the conversation that is taking place now. There's a debate in the text actually going on now about the material. And again, I apologize for the lack of divisions and so forth, but we'll try to fix this in the future.
Niba tele doba tonga na tongla sha muronshin sha dan jela tong mebe nyange ya do tonga ji kede ha sheba de chuna raji ji do tonba tele doba raji do tonba tele doba raji doba kele no ro kede raji ji doba tonga de raji doba kele ba ina da ba doba kele ba ina kele ba shena tene mete Raji Jubi Tumbala Shawasheba Tanji Teba Jadu Morosh Raji Juba Kilansadu Raji Jubi Tumbala Shaji Tanji Jatu Marwa.
So okay, so
Raji Juba Kilandu.
So what's saying now is that those who assert things that if it is dependently arisen, it must be self-sufficient, won't be able to perceive emptiness. So those who believe in this intrinsic existence won't be able to have a perception of emptiness. So that's what the text now is going on to say, that if you have to understand that the subject I is not self-sufficient, is not inherently existent because it is dependently arisen. And the person who doesn't understand this meaning or uses dependent arising as a wrong thinking, by saying, oh, if it dependently originates, it must be self-existent, then this person can't perceive emptiness. So that becomes an obstacle to the perception of emptiness. Okay. Okay. As Rinpoche said, it looks like we're about out of time. It's all started making so much sense, too. We'll catch up with this next time. Just in closing, the points made here, I want to summarize, is that the lower schools, all below middle way school, the Chittamantran, the Sutras, the Sautrantika, and the Vibhashka school, as well as the non-Buddhist schools, the enumerators, the nihilists. There's many different non-Buddhist traditions that are presented in the textbooks. They all state that there is intrinsic existence related to objects of observation, whereas the middle way school, either one of them, all states that things are not truly established, are not intrinsically existent because of dependent origination. So true establishment, intrinsic existence, these are two different Tibetan words, but they mean the same thing. If something is truly established, it's intrinsically existent. So the middle way school says, no, there is no intrinsic existence. Dependent origination proves that. The lower schools misuse the logic and say that dependent origination shows that it's intrinsically existent. It's able to perform a function, and it comes into being, and we name it as this. We all agree on it. It works. So that proves it has intrinsic existence. This whole section negates that idea and praises Buddha for the ability to find that subtle line between nihilism and substantialism. So these are the points that are made in this section, and stating that no matter what subject, any phenomena is what it's saying, any phenomena that you were to analyze and look at, whether it would be a phenomenon that is a static phenomenon or it's a phenomenon that you apprehend, such as a chair, a book, a tree, etc., or it's a phenomenon such as going, an action itself, or a movement, you will not find anything that is considered phenomena that has intrinsic existence. So when you investigate and try to find this intrinsic existence, you will only find lack of intrinsic existence. And dependent origination is the king of signs and reasoning that will allow you to ascertain that lack of intrinsic existence. And then by understanding something's lack of intrinsic existence, then you understand that it's empty. So emptiness is lack of intrinsic existence. It's just the most subtle form of emptiness presented in Buddhism. So there's selflessness, which is a less subtle, selflessness of the I, for instance, which is, would be agreed upon by lower schools. But this lack of intrinsic existence of everything is what is praised here, analyzed here, and proven to be a non-negatable sign. So, this book is of great importance. So you should read this prayer every single day. I do it myself, this prayer every single day, and if you could do it, it'd be good. The Logats do it. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I had no idea what any of it meant, but I remember my teacher making me memorize the entire thing. And I didn't know what the words meant, but I had it memorized. But I have forgotten some of it. I don't have it all memorized, it seems anymore. So I would study and memorize, and then have to be tested on what I had memorized. And every day, by days go by, before you know it, you have the whole thing memorized. So the Lama Tsongkhapa's Essence of Eloquence is about 100 pages. This text in praise of dependent origination is really just a synopsis of that text, Essence of Eloquence. So if you are able to use this as a prayer on a daily basis, and then understand what its meaning is by this repetition, then you open the door to the Kangjur and Tanjur, the pronouncements of Lord Buddha in the authentic Indian commentaries. So we've engaged in an enormous virtuous effort today, and it's important that we dedicate this virtue in order for it to become a cause for our Buddhahood. It's stated that just like a drop of water from a bucket that's put in the ocean is not extinguished until the entire ocean is extinguished, likewise, when one properly dedicates virtue to complete Buddhahood, that virtue remains until that Buddhahood is realized. So this was something that was stated by the Buddha, that enlightenment would be realized before the disintegration of that virtue's potential, the virtue's potential to produce. So it's for that reason that we need to do a very strong dedication in order for that to be what it produces.
어떠지?
Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you for your patience. I wish I was a better translator with text stuff. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors to traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso may stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gusi Shapi Denrona.
어떠지?